Welcome to Banking Transformed, the top podcast in retail banking. I'm your host, Jim Marous. Financial institutions face unprecedented challenges in product innovation and customer communication. From managing complex compliance requirements to optimizing offer management across multiple channels, financial institutions struggle with outdated systems that hinder their ability to compete effectively. Today, we're joined by Rab Govil, CEO and founder of Nehas, whose platform transforms how banks create, manage, and execute financial products and offers across multiple channels. Rab shares practical insights on how banks can reduce time to market for new products, ensure consistent messages across multiple channels, and maintain regulatory compliance without sacrificing innovation. Whether you're struggling with disclosure management, seeking to improve offer personalization, or modernizing your product pricing strategy, this conversation will provide actionable solutions for banking's most pressing operational challenge. Customer-facing technology lies a complex web of compliance requirements, product disclosures, and offer management systems that can make or break a bank's ability to innovate at speed and scale. The result, a single piece of communication can require over 100 steps across 30 different platforms, creating bottlenecks that slow innovation and obviously frustrate both internal customers and external customers. Today, we hope to uncover ways to resolve some of these challenges. So, Rab, we did some introduction before the podcast, but you founded Nehas over 17 years ago.
Yeah.
What problem in banking did you initially set out to solve when you founded Nehas? And how has that initial vision evolved over time as you've worked with more banks and financial services companies?
So thank you, Jim. And I love the use of the word fathered, because I literally did father Nehas because the company is named after my daughter, Neha.
Ah.
I'm not sure if you knew that.
No.
and I'll never do that again, by the way. Right? I'm a proud dad now. Like she just graduated from MIT and working in New York. But when she was young, as she was going through this process, she felt like she was on the board of Nehas. And she would come ask me questions all the time. So this is the company I'm really committed to. I have a successful daughter, and I really need to kind of make sure this company is successful beyond anything I've ever done before, right? So I enjoyed the word that you used, the word fathered. But your question about the business, it's fascinating. As I was sharing with you before, we kind of fell into this business. It was not like this business is what we started into it. So we initially started this business doing online marketing and landing page optimization. And one of the top 4 banks in the country came to us and said, "Man, we really like what you're doing, but we have a different problem for you." And the problem is in the midst of the crisis, the 2008-2009 financial crisis, their budgets were going to come down. They needed to continue to deliver returns, but they needed to do much deeper personalization. They needed to kind of get more offers out in a much shorter period of time. So they said, "Can you help us build this?" And we took a long, hard look, because we realized that once this was really a one-way door. If we went down to this, the rest of the business would go away, and we were committing to the financial services industry. So it was a big bet the company type of bet, and we made it, and it's turned out wonderfully, right? So that's kind of the origin story of this. That customer now has been a customer of ours for 15 years.
Wow.
16 years. right? Literally, they've been a customer of ours for that long. And now, if you look at their customer experience and marketing infrastructure, we are the engine behind it, right? They create the offers in our platform. They get them the strategic planning and governance for those offers, and all the channels happens in a platform. All 1,800 of their employees log into our platform on a daily basis. We deliver these offers into the channel using our platform. We nudge the customers when they have not met those product requirements using our platform. In fact, we are now the largest vendor of customer experience and marketing technology for this top four bank.
Well, I'm saying something that you know well because it's your business, but balancing innovation in customer engagement with strict compliance is no easy task. The compliances continually change. The ability to engage with customers gets more and more involved, but more and more powerful. You work with many leading banks on improving their marketing and compliance processes. How can banks strike a better balance between innovation and customer engagement when you look at the regulatory requirements? Can you share an example of how you've addressed the compliance in a smarter way that actually unlocked faster marketing and a better customer engagement process?
Yeah. I think, I'll give you a non-intuitive answer, and then I'll give you kind of the more prosaic answer, right? And the non-intuitive answer is that first and foremost, to do anything extraordinary requires will, right? It requires will on part of the executives to say that this is important. And it requires courage, right? Because financial institutions inherently are don't want to take a lot of risks.
Yeah.
Right? So they attract people who don't want to take a lot of risks, right?
Well, that's one of the things. I mean, I started in banking over 40 years ago. That's one of the things I got hired and taught first. Was it's not managing risk, it's the avoidance and risk. And when I went in the marketing area, I keep on fighting that balance because you keep on looking at it and say, I need to do marketing. Why am I being shut down in every turn?
It is. So I think when we look at couldn't agree more. Jim couldn't agree more, right? And when we look at the folks who have really succeeded with us, they had the courage and the will to think about a process that was different but much better what they had, right?
Yeah.
And it's been a journey. It's been a journey with these folks, right? Now the reality is, since we have now proven this at a lot of other financial institutions, the risk is a lot lower because they can now point to us having already proven it at three of the five largest institutions and several regional institutions to be able to do the work, right? So the risk is a lot smaller. But it still requires, the first and foremost is it requires courage on their part to say, you know what, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to make it happen, right? I was just talking to this wonderful person um, um, who has joined PNC as the chief marketing officer. And she had such a great perspective on this. She came from Capital One, and she had such a great perspective on it, which says, you know what? I need to do something different. I can't stay with the status quo, right? But the trick of doing something different is, how do I provide enough points? How do I put enough points on the board along the way that they allow me to achieve my vision? Which was a very thoughtful thing for us to say, right? So my perspective to executives in this space is, have a strong North Star about what you want to achieve, right? But have an agile mindset in delivering value every quarter. So we said we're going to put a process in place. We're going to have the North Star. This is where we want to get to. And we all agree on the North Star. But we're going to put a process in place that if you're not delivering value to the business or to the customer in a quarter, we're doing something wrong. We should be able to. There's no reason we cannot be able to do that.
So, are you a compliance company, a marketing company, a communications company, or a bit of all three?
So, great question. I think what we are is a financial services company, right? A company providing value to financial services. And we don't consider ourselves that we work in one domain versus the other domain. Our intention is, how do you create and market amazing products and offers and get it into the customer's hand quickly and make sure they have a wonderful experience, right? Like it drives me nuts. It drives me nuts because companies will spend so much time in acquiring a customer. And part of acquiring the customer, they'll make a statement, hey, if you deposit so much money into our bank account, we'll give you $500, right? Then they don't tell them anything about it. They don't tell them that, oh, you have three stipulations. You've only kind of met the direct deposit stuff, but if you just put another $1,000, you would have got your $500. And then the customer gets pissed and he calls them up. The company can't figure out how to find out where they stand in front of the stipulations. So then they say, oh my God, this is going to become a dispute. So let me just give them the money, right? Or let them.
And nobody wins, right?
Nobody wins in that whole marketplace. And I said, that's just not a great way to do business. And the struggle for them is, the question you asked is a great question, right? Because now they have all these providers and they say, oh, okay, to make this work, I need to buy this piece from this person. I need to buy this piece for this person. I need to buy this piece from this person, and I need to put it together, right? But and then I have to deliver a great customer experience, and it doesn't happen. So our real reason to be able to do this, we're going to create an amazing customer experience for you. And we have built a platform that has marketing, communication, compliance all built into it, right? So that's the positive part. It required, again, courage on our part, is because we had to realize that if we want to do a great job, we'll have to narrow our market just to financial services. So initially we had customers like Comcast, right? So we had to fire those customers, right? So that again required courage on our part. Is we will solve all these problems, but if you're solving a lot many problems, then you need to narrow your focus on a few customers to be able to do it well.
Even though those different industries had some of the exact same problems. I mean, they're all regulated in certain ways. They all have communication going out, but it's getting rid of the messiness. One of the statistics that caught my attention, and I mentioned it earlier, is that some financial institutions take over 100 steps across 30 different systems to get a single communication out to the marketplace.
It is insane.
How have you narrowed that down, or how have you streamlined that process? Because as you know, and I know, experience in financial services today is really about engagement. Is how can you take an offer that's instantaneous and get it in the customer's hands right away when there's a time of need that they may not even recognize. If you have 100 steps and 30 different platforms, you certainly can't have real-time marketing. How have you streamlined that process so that the most conservative of financial institutions, and you just mentioned one in a little bit ago on the person that took over the marketing, how can you take a very conservative organization and make it so that they feel comfortable getting something out immediately?
Great question, right? So, and the sad part about this is, you go to and talk to some of these employees, right, at these financial institutions, and they feel just beaten down, right, in terms of being able to do this. Because, I mean, literally, they kind of go from system to system. They enter the same information like 5 different times, right, into these systems. And then they make a mistake.
Yeah.
And the organization comes down on them really hard because the regulators comes down on them really hard, right?
Which
So
makes it so that the leadership says, shut that whole process down.
exactly, right? Or audit will come in, which I love it, says needs improvement, right? The audit will come in and needs improvement, right? And then they say everybody's kind of running around like crazy to kind of figure out what we really need to fix to be able to do this. So that's the current lives they live, right? So the way we approach this is we work our way back, right? To first kind of understand what experience they want to deliver, right? And then to deliver an experience, they have different parts of the data model they need to bring out. And what I mean by data model, they have a product description, they have an offer description, they have a campaign description, they have a channel description, they have content, right? All these different things need to come together. They have prime rate, right? So what happens is if you think about an organization is prime rate changes, that creates a level of anxiety within that organization because you go to a marketing organization or a customer experience organization and they'll tell you that they have no idea where all the different places they need to make the changes to make sure they implement the prime rate. And it's a 3-month process through this organization because nobody understands the impact of change across everything. So the first thing we are able to do is we say, let's kind of build the right data model for you so you understand where the source of record for each of your objects is. Once we understand that, then we can kind of put it in the right platform and the right places. Then we can put the right process behind it. And then we should have the tech discussion. So people kind of scratch our head when we come to them. I said, are you a software company? Just like you asked this question, or are you a consulting company, right? And I said, you know what? Now I tell them that we're in the business of selling expertise. We are an expertise company. We just happen to bring software along for the side, right? Because we are here to kind of solve your problem. But you need to approach it from that perspective.
Yeah. And what's interesting, because you work with so many financial institutions, they're as much as every institution says we're different than everybody, the reality is a lot of the patterns are the same. A lot of the places where you collect information is the same. So you really embed yourself within a financial institution to find out what are different with them than some of your other clients. But really, the solving the problem you can replicate it. And,
Yes.
when you look at that, you work with 6 of the top 10 U.S. banks.
Yeah.
What common patterns have you seen in how the successful financial institutions approach digital transformation versus those that struggle? And I'm going to go a little bit further because even though you work with 6 of the top 10, I am sure, because we see it, that not all of the successful ones are all the biggest ones. You see some really good successes in some of your smallest clients,
Like
some of your mid-sized clients.
First National Bank of Omaha is a great client, right? They're a regional player, about 30 billion in assets, but the leader there, Mark and Corey, like some of the people, they've always been very, very thoughtful, and they want to approach things in a much more innovative manner, right? So true. Sometimes the largest organizations have the largest friction.
Yeah. Oh,
right.
and that goes for the mid-sized organization because they get caught between how much do they invest versus how much do they hold on to the old systems. Those mid-sized, the one you just, National Bank of Omaha, you just mentioned an organization. That size sometimes is the hardest one to work with because they have leaders that have never had difficult times. So stepping out and actually managing risk as opposed to just completely avoiding it is sometimes a big step.
It's a big step. So what have we found, right?
Yeah.
Well, sometime innovation is forced on these financial institutions, right? In terms of doing this, right? They get to the point in their career that is like, literally either there's a MRA or there's a consent order, and they need to kind of fix these processes, right? So sometimes, as I said, necessity is the mother of invention. In that case,
Yeah.
they don't have a choice, right? You have a gun to your head. What are you going to do? All right, we need to innovate. So I'll always find that fascinating. I said, man, you could have avoided this if you had taken care of this 4 years ago,
Or
but now
17
you're
years ago.
17 years
Yeah.
ago, right? You could have avoided this, but you know what? It's the human condition. Like that's why people sometimes struggle with exercise, right? Because the 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 returns are not right then. The return are like 6 or 9 months ahead, right? And until we have the one. So sometimes that's the case. So we have seen this, right? But the folks who are kind of proactive, I generally find that uh, it's almost a trait, right? It's almost a trait in them. And Jim, if I if I asked you this question, right? You've been in this industry a long time, and tell me who the top 10 innovative people in this industry are on the marketing side, I bet off the top of your head, you could say it because they act a different way, they think a different way.
Yeah. It's interesting because, and it's not always the organizations you'd necessarily think of. Obviously, one of the ones on my top 5 list would be the biggest bank. They
Yeah.
do a lot of things really, really well. Not all
Yeah.
things, but some things really, really well. They have the money to invest, but sometimes I see it among much smaller organizations. Sometimes I
Yeah.
see it with organizations that are in the midpoint, but and you keep on referring to this either subtly or overtly, is it does get down to leadership.
It does
Because
get down to leadership.
if the organization is so caught up in avoiding risk, is so caught up on avoiding anything that could possibly
Yeah.
hit a nerve, communication, engagement. I remember when we would shut down programs because 4 branches would call and say a customer complained, and nobody ever did the math to say you had 4 customers out of a 10,000 piece mailing. Or, and the thing is, we're getting more and more involved where customers know today more about what can be done than ever before. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of times where expectations have risen, not because of what's going on in banking, but what's going on everywhere. They're
Everywhere.
understanding more about what AI can do. And they're coming to branches sometimes more often saying, wait, I don't get where this policy comes from. It makes no sense based on what I know you know about me.
Yep.
And that's not about legacy technology. It's about legacy thinking. And, as I'm understanding more about Nehas and about your capabilities and about
Yeah.
what you solve for, you
Yeah.
really get a lot of the friction out of the way so that when we're talking about personalizing experiences, personalizing engagement, personalizing communication, the thing that usually sticks in our way is we don't want to make a mistake. Well, there are going to be mistakes made at times with the offer versus the customer. But the reality is, if you get a lot of these, what used to be manual processes out of the way, you avoid the possibility of a mismatch. And that's how Amazon and Google and others do so well at the personalization process. And
We have seen
sometimes
that
it's this,
happen. We have seen
sometimes
that
it's the
happen.
simple stuff.
Yeah, I've seen that happen. Couldn't agree more, Jem. Could not agree more. We have seen, like, we just deployed a platform at one of our customers, right? And their errors went down 20% month over month, right? And the only reason they did it is we eliminated a bunch of manual processes in the middle, and they now have a thoughtful process with the right data model, and and it takes them. I mean, it's such a win-win, right?
Yeah.
The employees are happy. They finally feel that they can, like, they're not worried they'll make a mistake. The system automatically corrects for it, right? And initially they were like, well, the system doesn't allow me to do that. Well, guess what? It's actually protecting you from yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Because people in the front of the process would do something, and then they would not be, they will be very loose, and the people who are really executing at the bottom of the process would have to recover from it. Now in the front of the process, we tell people to do exactly the right thing, so it flows through the system in a straight through processing system, right? So it makes such a huge difference in terms of employee experience, customer experience, and actually saving the financial institution money.
Right, because it gets down to the efficiency in the back office where you get rid of all the 100 steps you mentioned across 30 systems. To get rid of those hits the
visibility.
Hits the financial system. I mean, I kid about the fact that as much as banks talk about the personalized experience and how they try to help their customers, the bottom line is the way you get in as a company is you're saying, I'm going to save you money, because at the core of everything, they're saying, I want what you do to pay for itself.
Yeah.
And by the way, as much as you may say it pays for itself by the customer engagement, by expanding relationships, all this, that's not really what floats their boat. They want those back offices to be streamlined. And oh, by the way, the expansion of relationships becomes gravy to them. It's interesting. Everything you're talking about from the standpoint of what your company, what Nehas brings to the table, all makes sense. You eliminate back office clutter. You look and you build communication processes that take information from different places and make it compliance ready.
Yeah.
All these things make all the sense in the world. However, I would imagine as you're knocking on doors, you don't sell every organization.
Yeah.
What gets in the way of closing the deal on your side from the financial institution side? So what I'm really looking at is what makes it so that organizations don't buy what maybe makes all the sense in the world.
It's fascinating, right? So first it goes back to how we started this conversation, right? Our actual close rate, once we get into a conversation, is very high, right? But the fact we were a best kept secret, nobody knew about it. I mean, literally. I mean, Jim, I'm so glad you're kind of helping us solve this problem, right? I'm sorry. Like, I was talking to the CIO at one of the largest credit card issuers, one of the top 5 credit card issuers, right? The CIO over there, right? Yesterday, amazing guy, right? And he said, Rab, the only way I found out about you is because I was meeting with Frank over at Morgan Stanley. And Frank said, have you heard about these guys? He said, no, who the hell they are? It's very similar to you, right? So first of all, I think we suffer from that, right?
Yeah.
I think, so what's fascinating is we get there, right, with most organizations, but the process to get there is so much longer than it needs to be. So it's not a fact that we don't sell it or close it, but the process is so long is because we're struggling with 2 things, right? One thing is you have all these horizontal platforms, right? Salesforce and Adobe, right? And they provide some great components that we integrate, but they have the brand. So they're kind of sitting there kind of saying is, okay, buy our platforms, and they maybe provide, like, in a great way, like 30 to 40% of the capabilities. Now you as an institution now need to customize them for financial institutions, right? And do all the integration and all the work and everything necessary to get from 30%. And they never ever really actually get to 90% or 95% to do this. They only ever get to from 30% to like maybe like 60%, right? And then after like spending like 5-6 years doing that, then they say, okay, now we need to rethink it, right? We are in so many of these conversations where they said, man, we invested the time and energy, and instead of just using these platforms for the components or the things they provide, we just customize them. Then they became custom solutions. Now we are dying under the weight to be able to do that. But from our perspective, Now it's taken them 2 years to get through their process before they come to their senses.
So your company doesn't replace the Salesforce, Adobe. You
No,
basically allow an organization to leverage the capabilities of those systems even more than they are, correct?
even more than they were. And that, I think, right, and realizing that, right, like, and there's some people, right, some CIOs and some folks we talk to in marketing organization, they finally have kind of learned that. I said, you know what, you need to buy purpose built systems that are set up for you. We are not marketing or customer, we are not engineering organizations. We shouldn't be building it, because as soon as we start building it, we take on technical debt, and it's just become the next system, the next green screen 2 years from now. So use these things, right? And then we become the platform that you're able to integrate all these things together without having to customize all these things for financial services.
You know, it's interesting. I kid, but I kidded once with a person from Salesforce, and they agreed with me. I said, I believe you're probably in one way or the other. Maybe it's just something on the back shelf. About 80% of the financial institutions have Salesforce.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because they're not as good, they're getting better at it, not as good as working with their clients to make it so they use it. The leveraging of that capability, which is very powerful, is, and you brought up, maybe at 20% of the organizations are actually leveraging the capabilities of a Salesforce. The problem is we need to deploy against that because, again, the customer expects that output to be available to them. I say it probably every other podcast I have, is I know that my personal bank, Wells Fargo, my business bank, PNC, both know me, understand me, and would like to reward me. However, they never tell me they know me. They never show me they know me. And that's because crap gets in the way. Maybe it's systems. Maybe it's just worried about, geez, what happens if I make a mistake and I offer them? And I'm the one who suffers. So what ends up happening is, as in your life and everybody around me's personal life, is we build our own financial relationship management system using multiple organizations because nobody's filling all the buckets that they need to fill. And I think, you know, on your side, and I talked about, you know, what stands in the way, and you described it. I think another thing that stands in the way also is there's a lot of people that may get impacted in their minds about what you want to implement. They get worried about, geez, am I going to want to change what I already know how to do? Even marketing, which is usually more open to new ideas, they're going, geez, you know, I've always had to call for the list from the information department, from the insight department, and we've never deployed it against the branch. And the branches, I'm not sure if they even know how to use the insight we could provide them.
Yeah.
So you have to work, I'm sure, with your clients to fix the cultural issues within an organization around change. You're having to change what they're used to, which nobody can debate the fact that it's going to be better, but everybody takes it internally and says, how's that going to impact me?
Yeah. You know, the way I explain to people, right, is when we sell them a solution, we are about like 10% of the way there.
Yeah.
Right. And people kind of look at me and kind of say, what do you mean we're only 10% of the way there? I said, all you have sold them is a vision that their lives can get better, but it's not reality yet. It's not reality yet. Like they bought this based on this vision, then they'll get better, but it's not reality yet. So they literally kind of struggle with kind of getting to that point where where we have invested in this is we have invested in a big customer success department. And what we are telling people is we are now making a commitment, and it's not a dating relationship. We are actually getting married. So now the hard work begins.
Yeah. Yeah.
We need to work through. The person will come say, hey, I don't want kids, and we want kids, and we'll have to work through those conversations. Like we'll have to do all the hard work necessary to build a successful marriage to be able to do that. And that's one of the primary reasons we've been successful is we're saying is once we sell the software, we are with you all the way, right? And it's working through all those issues. And all the things you come through is what makes us successful over other software vendors, because most software vendors, the model is, here's a piece of software, go figure it out.
That boy, you're taking words right out of my mouth, because I can give you a couple of examples of companies that I think have amazing platforms, amazing solutions, but they don't help the organization deploy what they've created, which is a big problem, because that's where the payoff is. And there are organizations that, because they don't help the deployment side, their sale is always at risk because there's no real payback. I mean, I know how, I understand more about how you help with disclosure management with regard to regulatory things, how you work with offer management, and even product pricing and product innovation.
Yeah.
How do you help the deployment function? How do you help your clients actually get what is the output into the marketplace?
Yeah. Fascinating, right? So we have built teams, right, that are focused on it, right? And what we found out initially, what we found out as we started working with it, it's not one person that can get them through. So now our teams have 4 functions when we kind of deploy at a customer, right? There's the executive relationship, the person who maintains the executive relationship and is kind of the governance and making sure they're always bringing them back to, hey, here's what your vision is and how we are implementing it, right? Then we have subject matter experts. And what I mean by subject matter experts, these are people who, like you, worked at a bank, have sat in the shoes of these people, who can kind of talk their language about all the different products. And we have different subject matter experts for different products. Like we have a product and pricing expert, we have a marketing expert, we have a disclosure expert. We have all these experts that actually have done that function in that bank, who can come and have these conversations with them, right? Then we have project managers, right, who are actually kind of making sure that the work's getting done. And then we have technical architects who will sit down and figure out how to make everything work. And we found that you need all 4 of these functions to be able to do it.
Yep.
Most people will only kind of provide one function or 2 of these functions. And if you have missing one leg of this table, the table, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So it, and the reason it happened is, remember, we were never a sales organization. So the reason we grew was word of mouth. We grew by word of mouth. We said, okay, let's solve the problem. So we ended up kind of creating this infrastructure because we realized that was needed, right? So I think the reason we've been able to do this is we have deployed the right teams with the right expertise to make it happen for these organizations. And Jim, as both you and me know, right, you can have the best tech and you can have the best intentions, but it finally comes down to your people. The people who see light from dark, right? The people who don't stop when you hit some sort of roadblock. They say, I'm committed to kind of making this successful.
So one of the things I've heard you say in different interviews I've heard of yours is you keep on saying that financial institutions have to get back to the basics on fundamentals like delivering value, building efficiency, making sure they have good risk management as opposed to risk avoidance. And that's my words, not yours on that one.
Yeah.
With that in mind, how do you see AI playing into this whole narrative as you go forward? Because I'm sure your company, as well as all your clients, are looking at how AI can help the engagement, help the experience, help compliance management, both back office and front office. How do you see this really transforming what you do as a company and how you work with your clients?
So first of all, this subject is very near and dear to my heart, right? The reason it's near and dear to my heart is my master's degree was in AI at that time. This was a very, very long time ago. In fact,
what did AI stand for? The same thing back then? I'm sorry, that's not fair.
Yeah. You know what was funny? It was called expert systems.
Oh,
it was
yeah.
called
Okay.
expert systems and other types of things, right?
Yeah.
But literally, I think AI stands for anything that was a little more advanced technology than anything that people could do at that time. That's what AI meant, was like it was, oh, this thing is a little bit magical, so let's call it AI, right? In
Yeah.
terms of doing this, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so over the years, I've kind of followed it very carefully. I've invested in companies along the way, right? So I've been through all the cycles. In fact, what I'm most proud of is about 6 years ago, I started a foundation called AI for All with Fei Li, who's the head of AI at Stanford, and Olga, who's a professor at Princeton, to really make sure that the benefits for AI benefit humanity as a whole instead of being um, with a select few. Since then, we have had Jensen Huang. A lot of folks have also invested in that foundation, and we've been really following the evolution of AI
Wow.
across this thing, right? So please check it out. AI for All, great organization that's doing some amazing things. So the reason I kind of gave you that background is I come to this discussion about AI with a very nuanced view about what's reality or not reality. And my perspective on AI is that in some cases it's very different than the way we have done things, but in other cases it's still exactly the same. And what do I mean by that is certain functions AI allows you to do very easily, which would have taken an enormous amount of programming
Yep.
effort,
Yep.
right? You could have done the same thing, but you would have had to build 200 rules, right, to be able to do exactly
Yep.
the same thing. And and here AI can kind of do it by just asking a certain types of questions. There are other places where AI does a very poor job, right? If I'm going to calculate a balance for a company, I want a real rule, right? I want the calculation to be exactly exact. I don't want it to be kind of exact.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
In terms of doing this. So my perspective is AI is no different than any other big revolution we have had, whether it's been databases or other things. It will unlock a lot of capabilities that used to take humans a long time to do, to make it happen, but it needs to be symbiotic in the way it works with humans.
You know,
So
it's very, as you're saying, it enhances the human, but human also has to enhance the AI component. That you look at this and we're learning. I'm learning every day how to prompt better because
yes,
it. I remember when Gen AI first came out in November of 2022, and people said, "Oh, this sucks. This is no better than anything else." And I said, if you want to know what really sucks, I hate to say it, but look in the mirror. Because you're not asking it, you're asking it dumb questions and you're getting dumb answers. And today, I use AI every single day in my personal life and in my business life.
yeah,
I can document that it saved me about 8 hours of time by getting me out of what I'll call writer's block or thinking block, because it'll give me ideas. In addition, it allows me some time to do that dartboard in the dark room where you don't know which way you're looking, and do a what if, throw it against the wall. And one of the examples I gave recently on a podcast was I asked it to compare the innovation mindset of SpaceX, Clayton Christensen, and a traditional bank. And it came back with such an amazing narrative that I'm now building an article around, but using AI as simply my starting ground. I still want it in my voice. But it's interesting because it gives you the ability to think beyond, but also, as you mentioned, getting back to basics a little bit about making sure that you don't misunderstand the fundamentals upon which that's built.
Yeah, think about it, right? It's able to do to probabilistic thinking. I mean, what people don't realize, these AI large language models are basically statistical engines, but they're statistical engines operating off this vast trove of data.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And they can see the connections between the data, like Clayton Christensen and a bank, etc., to be able to bring this. for you to gather up all that information and make the connection is an impossible.
Would not have been able to do it. And I wouldn't have done it as well.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, I still have to put my mind to it and say, what do I not want to include here? Because I doubt the reality of that. So, finally, let's say there's a lesson that you want to leave behind, because obviously we have very similar paths that you're foundational this year. You want to make banking better. You want to make banking better for the bank, but also for their customers. You want to avoid the things that we've made mistakes on years and years and years in the making, and we continue to make them. What would be the one lesson right today that you'd like to leave behind to say, this will help you better embrace change and drive better experiences and engagement within their organization? What would be the lesson?
I think I will go back to some of the conversations we have had, but let me start with kind of highest level purpose, right? And the highest level purpose is financial institutions matter, right? And sometimes people lose sight of that. Look at any country that doesn't have a well-developed financial system, and they have a lower quality of life.
Yeah,
it's just reality.
Yeah,
right. Financial institutions matter. They improve lives in the communities they work in, but we have lost our way in some cases, right? And the lesson I leave people is, go back to why you exist as a financial institution, right? It's to make your customer's life better.
Yeah.
And if you can always index back to that, then we can make the technology work. We can make the processes work. We can make this thing, but we have to constantly index
and we can make money.
And we can make money.
Yeah.
And we can make money. So my feedback to it is, like, if I was to kind of get on my soapbox, I would kind of say, I care about financial institutions. You matter in the world. You make people's life better. Let's help you make your customers' life better and make money along the way. And that's why we exist as an organization.
As we're rounding out the end of this podcast, I do want to make a major announcement. First here, NAHAS has agreed to sponsor the Executive Leadership Series, which is part of the Financial Brand Forum that's running from the 14th to 16th of April in Las Vegas. As part of the Executive Leadership Series, I will be interviewing 8 executive leaders from across the financial services industry live at the event. But more importantly, thanks to the support of NAHAS, we're going to be recording these podcasts and distributing them after the Financial Brand Forum for everyone to enjoy. We'll have executives like Colin Walsh, the founder and CEO of Varo. We'll have officers from Ally Bank, from TD Bank, from Key Bank, from U.S. Bank, as well as Lindsay Johnson from the Consumers Bankers Association and Jennifer Smith from Zions Bank. You won't want to miss this, and we, again, want to really thank the support of NAHAS to make this possible.
Well, Jim, thank you so much. This was a wonderful conversation, and we really appreciate the partnership, because I think we both share the common vision of making financial institutions better.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks for listening to Banking Transformed, the winner of 3 international awards for podcast excellence. If you enjoy our work, please give us a positive review. Finally, check out my recent articles on the financial brand and our fantastic research we're doing for the Digital Banking Report. This has been a production of Evergreen Podcast. A special thank you to our senior producer, Leah Hassage, and audio and video producer, Will Pritz. If you've not already done so, remember to subscribe to Banking Transform on both your favorite podcast app and on YouTube for more thought-provoking discussions on the intersection of finance, technology, and leadership.